I'm Brandon Rucker, and
I'm Krista Rucker. We have two children that are both born pretty much deaf and hard of hearing. We have a son, Damien, who's 4 right now, and a daughter, Nora, who's 2. And it's there's 2 different stories for both of them, just because we've had more experience. Damien failed his newborn screenings numerous times, so we ended up having to make an appointment with an audiologist through our pediatrician. That was about a couple weeks. I think the hardest part about that was just when you first had him, you really felt like you did something wrong because you're like, our son can't hear. What did we do? And so the first couple weeks I think were pretty hard because it was over 4th of July too. So it was everybody in our family's like, I think they heard that firecracker. I think they heard this. So it was a roller coaster for the first 2 weeks, and then we got to go to see the audiologist, and they were like, oh, it's great, it's fine, he can hear. So then we just continued everything like normal, like, yeah, he can hear. Things are perfect, we worried for no reason. And then my mom used to watch him.
yeah, she watched them for a week, and we got them back, and she said, I think there's something wrong. When they're watching TV, I ring a bell and stuff behind them, and I don't think he can hear. And so I'm like, no, it's got to be fine. We already did the hearing test and stuff, and we don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
So she ended up talking us into going and making another appointment. So we talked to our pediatrician, and he kind of blew us off. And we're kind of irritated and stuff. And I called my dad and was talking about it, and he said, I want you to get another opinion. So I called my ENT that I saw a year before, and he said, I can get you in an hour. So we went directly over there, and he's like, okay, well, we'll start with tubes, and put the tubes in and everything was fine. And a few weeks later, we were in Spokane, and he got an ear infection. It was oozing, and the doctor retired. We were in one of his last surgeries. And so I just called some random one in Spokane, heard it was good, and he wanted us to get an ABR.
Yeah. So then we had the ABR done, and the nice thing about talking to him beforehand, though, he's like, with all of this information, it doesn't make sense. You know, he's like, I really need to investigate it further because it just didn't line up. So we had that, which we thought was just a waste of money because we're like, we've already been down this road. You know, when he was born, you told us he couldn't hear. We thought that for a couple weeks, and it was fine. So it was a couple-hour procedure, and we were just like, yeah, this is such a waste of time. And then when you had a couple different people come out, you're like, okay, this is probably not going how we want it to go. And they just kind of sat down with us, and they're like, here's your information for the early intervention. Like, this is where his hearing levels are, and they were really pretty profound for the most part. And so it was kind of a shock from there, and then just trying to figure out where we're supposed to go was the hardest part, because they're like, here's all these. I guess if we were back in Idaho, it would be a little different because there's not as many opportunities, but we were in Spokane for that year. And then they had 5 different early intervention networks, and we met an SLP, and we were like, I really like her. Like, I connected well with her, and it kind of felt right. And so the program we wanted to go with, she wasn't part of. So we were like, okay, well, we're going to do whatever program you're part of. And so we went with them, and it was probably the best thing for us. She's been the strongest advocate for when we don't understand things. I'll call her up or text her when I'm upset, and she's like, oh, I'm going to email the ENT right away. We're going to figure this out. This shouldn't be happening. And so she's always pushed, and our ENT is really responsive back and forth with her. So we've lucked out to have somebody that's been like just a huge kind of mentor, because she's worked with children that are deaf of hard of hearing, not just children that are speech delayed, because once we moved back to Idaho, we dealt with people that were focused on speech delays for just other syndromes. And so it was really frustrating for us when the stuff they were trying to work with our son, we're like, I'm like, we've already been doing this. I'm like, you don't even know what you're, like, for us, we lost a lot of trust in what they were doing, and it was the first time that we actually had to deny services. We're like, this isn't going to work. So we had to, we found some of the most sought after ones in Moscow, and we've been pretty lucky because this year she works with adults too, and she was going to drop all her children cases and she's going to keep our son, which we're really happy about because we've had about 3 different changes till we got to her. And we're like, no, we just get comfortable with people and we really are on the same page. And we've just lucked out that they all work together because we still go to Spokane once a month. Just because of that initial impression was so strong for us. We go back and they all work together as a team for our son and now for our daughter, Nora.
Yeah. Once they told us we got hearing aids about 2 weeks later for Damien and had him fitted. And at the time it was severe, so the hearing aids gave him some amplification, so we could tell a little bit of difference. But as time went on, they weren't helping and stuff, so we did several ABRs, sedated ones, and I think after the second one we decided that hearing aids aren't going to work because their condition is progressive. And that's when we started thinking about getting a cochlear implant shortly after the hearing aids. And cochlear implants are complicated and very expensive, so we had to prove to the doctors and to insurance that you're willing to do everything, take them to speech therapy, do all their appointments for a year before they actually let us do it.
And then it was hard too, because I think I was more like, no, hearing aids will be fine. I don't want my child to have this big surgery. And Brandon was all about the research and he's so well versed in the technology. And I was just like, I don't know, I was more scared just because, it's a big surgery to have for your child. But Brandon's pushed really hard too for, this is the best outcome. And I think what really helped us is we were in Spokane in a park we used to play at. Brandon had an experience. He was up there with Damien playing, and a man noticed Damien's hearing aids and came up to him and he's like, I have implants, and his son does too. And I think, I don't know, we were kind of in a tunnel going down, and it was probably the first time Brandon it seemed like he was really hopeful because their 6-year-old had like perfect speech, and so thinking that your kid wouldn't be like understood, it kind of made you realize like how great that could be for you, because you had those examples. And then the father had been implanted. He's our age, about 35, and
he said the same day.
Yeah, they had their implant surgeries the same day, and then even his speech was so strong. And he was a professor with a PhD, and so like all those dreams that you thought might not be possible because you don't understand, you're like, he's so successful and he's been this advocate, and even with his hearing disability. And so it was really a good spot for us to just meet this random person that came up to us.
Yep, he gave us his number, and a few days later we met again and let the kids play and stuff. He was a really big help. He showed us that he'll be able to do things that we at the time didn't think would be possible.
Yeah. It was just like that right person at the right time to kind of show you that it's all possible, because it's hard when you get that information, because you hope the best for your child from birth, and then those roller coasters happen, and to realize that like no matter what, things can be really successful for them. And so then from there, Damien was in the Hope School in Spokane for children that are hard of hearing, and we developed other relationships outside that where we got to go to like parent conferences, and we've seen different adults and got to listen to different families. And it is like, we realized that we're incredibly lucky that Damien just has a hearing his hearing deficit. We could have other challenges going along, which we kind of are now. So it's sort of, but you realize that
we learned a lot in the last 3 years, and starting off, and then we do speech therapy and we do sign with them because we want them to have full communication, because technology fails. There's times where the batteries die, the cable will break, and you'll be doing something, and if we didn't work with them with sign language, there would be no communication. And so that's why we try to do both. She does lots of speech therapy and they incorporate it in there. So it's always the sound first so he can learn to listen, and then the sign.
Yeah.
So we're pretty happy about how they're working with him in that way. And we're learning too.
Yeah, we're like baby sign language level.
Yep, they help us out. They do classes once a week at the high school for us. Damien will go to preschool and we'll pick him up and he'll be doing some random sign and we have no idea what it is. And it's easy to look up signs when you want to say something, but to find it in reverse.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yep, so then we have to write them down and ask him when we drop him off again and figure out what he's trying to say. And yeah.
It's progressed well. And then we have Nora. So we didn't have a family history that we knew of with hearing loss. So we were like, okay, well, the odds of having like Nora is probably gonna be fine. It'll be good.
Yeah, the doctor told us not to worry.
Yep, so, didn't worry about anything like that. Then, had Nora and same process, failed all her hearing screenings. So we're just like, okay, well, we know what we're gonna do. The pediatrician called our ENT and we had that scheduled like the next day. So it's kind of nice just once you felt like you've been on that ground, you're like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do.
Yeah, we called Lisa.
Yeah, we called Lisa too.
And she sent the ENT an email and called them for us. And we got a phone call from them shortly after to schedule an appointment. So that was really nice. We definitely knew the steps and who to contact. And it was a lot easier the second time with her. We never thought we'd have 2 kids with hearing loss. And we were kind of fortunate with her because it was easier. Her hearing was worse than Damien's. He had normal hearing when we first started, when he was born for the first year, and Nora just had profound deafness right away. And so we just automatically knew that we wanted her to get a cochlear implant, and we had hearing aids 3 months, and she wore those. She didn't wear them as much as Damien because he
was older
he
when
was
he got his
older,
in.
and hearing aids benefited him at first. It's kind of hard to have her wear them when you know there's really no use, even though it's really important for her development. But hers was so bad, we just kept them, and we'd have her wear them a couple hours a day.
Yeah, she slept so much, and then you had to go through the process to get the surgery, which we went through, and it was the most frustrating thing because we knew that she needed access to sound because Damien is delayed, and so we were like, we at least want one of our children to be progressing how she should and get the best opportunity to. And it was just a battle with insurance because the FDA is all 12 months. So our doctor was on board, but the surgical scheduler was, no, it's not going to happen. Your insurance won't cover it. So Brandon called every week, and no one wanted to talk to him.
Didn't like me very much. I was in a hurry because the doctor said he was willing to do it 9 months, and that's what we wanted. And insurance said no way, and the scheduler said no way. So we weren't very good friends, her and I.
But so I had to call and make those appointments, and we finally got to do it. We were excited because they're like, okay, well, our compromise is when she turns 1 year old, we'll put it on the books. So we got her surgery a month after she was 1, and we were going to do both of them. And so going into it, we knew the time frame for one because we've had one with Damien, and Nora's, we were sitting there for over 5 hours before we even saw anybody. So we're like, something is probably not right because we didn't even have an update. And then probably 30 minutes later, a doctor came out. He's like, we had a complication.
They were only able to do one side.
Yeah, they knew with the physiological defects our children had, it's called a gusher that could possibly happen because they have enlarged aqueducts. And so Nora's were bigger, and he knew it could happen. And so that's why he chose to start with the side he did. And lo and behold, the one in few chances that it could happen, that was Nora. So it was more like, so
spent 24 hours in the ICU. They sedated her the whole time because she lost quite a bit of cerebral spinal fluid. So, yeah, it was a good thing he didn't do both. It would have been a really long surgery if it was.
Yeah, and he said it's easier when it's one, especially with that complication, because sometimes they have to go back in and reopen your child up to try to figure out what's going on. So,
And they did, because he packed everything and
yeah.
it was still happening, so he had to go back in and do it all over again. But the good thing about it was he wanted to do it 5 weeks later, and we were okay with that. And then we were kind of worried about Damien, and he had his first surgery on the left, and then after Nora's, we found out that his hearing had gone into the profound range on his right. So we talked to the ENT, and he's like, okay, well, we'll just do them both. Back-to-back surgeries, we'll just take care of it all at once. So we were really excited about that, and
I'm nervous.
nervous, because that's one of the hardest parts, was doing the surgery, because you're so nervous and everything. But it worked out good, and 5 weeks later, both of them were implanted, Damien first, Nora second. And it was almost textbook
Yeah.
compared to her last one. And after that, I think it's been fairly smooth sailing.
Yeah, it's
That's
kind of nice
good.
to have people that, because you feel really alone a lot of the time.
Especially where we're at. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and so it's nice to hear people's stories. They're so similar to ours, but some are so different. And it makes you thankful for what benefits you're having right now with your children. You know, there is still good no matter how bad it could be. And it's just great that there's other people, like, however terrible you felt, other people have felt that way, and that, you know, you learn it's not your fault. You can't control it. It's just how things are going to be, and you take what you can and you do the best you can with what you have. And we have healthy, ornery children, and they're too smart for their own good, and so we're pretty lucky to have that. And so